Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Kids Storytime with the Chinese American Museum. I am Kavina Queserio, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator at CAM. It is great to see some familiar faces joining us again, and a big welcome to all our new friends joining us here today. I'd like to take a moment to thank our FCAM board, staff members, and our program sponsor, Panda Express. I hope you all are excited as I am, because today, Ms. Rita and I will be welcoming a special guest author. There will be a Q&A portion towards the end of the program. Please feel free to add questions for our guest author in the chat box. As a small reminder, before we get started, today's program will be recorded and may be public in the future. Also, to have the best viewing experience, I recommend watching this event in speaker view. Let's get started. Please welcome Ms. Rita from the Los Angeles Public Library.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ms. Rita, and it's wonderful to see you. And today we have Dr. Angela Williamson. I'm really excited to introduce her. Something that's really special is that she is cousins with Rosa Parks. I'm sure you've heard of Rosa Parks, a very famous and noteworthy civil rights activist. Now, Dr. Angela Williamson made a documentary film called My Life with Rosie that's about Rosa Parks. And it's about her activism beyond the city of Montgomery. And for this, she's won Best Documentary titles at film festivals across the country. And she recently released a book to go alongside it, which is what she's going to read today. It's called My Life with Rosie, A Bond Between Cousins. And it was named Best Children's Book About Black History by Mothering Magazine. And Dr. Williamson has so many years of experience in broadcast TV, cable news. She has her PhD, and now she continues to host a weekly interview show on KLCS PBS called Everybody with Angela Williamson. So she's going to be a great speaker and presenter. We can't wait to have her read this story for us. So Dr. Williamson, we'd like you to take it away. We'd love to learn more about your cousin.
Thank you, Ms. Rita, and I'm so excited to be here and actually read this very special story to all of you today. Not only will I read the story, but I'm going to give you some insights because you took some time this afternoon to listen to my story about Cousin Rosie. And with Miss Rita at the end, we're all going to sing one of the many songs that was sung during the Civil Rights Movement. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. My friend, Miss Kavine, will be helping me today so that you could see all the wonderful pages in the book. My Life with Rosie, A Bond Between Cousins. This book is dedicated to my husband, Jeff, and our son, Noel. Young Carolyn was always excited for school to end because she could visit her favorite cousin, Rosie. She would run home from school and take the bus on the east side of Detroit to ride to Cousin Rosie's house. The door was never locked because Cousin Rosie knew that one of her favorite little cousins would be visiting. Cousin Rosie, where are you? Young Carolyn yelled while opening the door. In here, Carolyn, said Cousin Rosie. When Carolyn walked into the room, she saw Cousin Rosie at her sewing machine making a skirt. When Cousin Rosie was at home, she was always at her sewing machine because she was a master tailor and designed the prettiest clothes, Carolyn thought. Cousin Rosie looked up from her sewing machine with a smile because she knew what Carolyn wanted. She wanted a skirt just like Cousin Rosie. Stand over there, she told young Carolyn. Carolyn immediately went to stand close to the sewing machine, and Cousin Rosie started to measure her. Yep, you're an Edwards, all right, said Cousin Rosie. Carolyn looked at Cousin Rosie because she didn't understand what she meant. Cousin Rosie just smiled at young Carolyn and explained that being an Edwards means that you come from a long line of activists. What's an activist? Is that what you did in Alabama before you moved to Detroit? Asked young Carolyn. Yes, and I organized the NAACP Youth Council for little activists like you, said Cousin Rosie. Young Carolyn looked confused. So Cousin Rosie explained, when you're an activist, you feel that everyone should be treated with respect, and it doesn't matter what color they are. So you work hard to make sure they're always treated fairly. Young Carolyn remembered Cousin Rosie's involvement with the NAACP and the Montgomery bus boycott. Cousin Rosie worked with young people during the boycott, and they distributed flyers around Montgomery. Young Carolyn was so happy that her father helped Cousin Rosie move to Detroit because people wanted to hurt Cousin Rosie for not giving up her bus seat on December 1st, 1955. She loved the stories Cousin Rosie told her about the bus boycott, especially about the Youth Council being a vital role in the bus boycott. The Youth Council passed out flyers to encourage people to not take the bus. They did this for an entire year. And for all of us, we know what that means. That's 12 full months. She was amazed that there were kids around her age fighting for human rights. Young Carolyn wished she could have been in Montgomery to help Cousin Rosie. Now, because all of you are here, I get to tell you exactly what all of these beautiful photos mean. Well, in January, all of the people that supported the bus boycott had to start their own carpools in what they formed, and they went to every bus stop to help people get to and from work and home. What I like to say is that what they did in January 1956 is they started their own, what we call today, Uber and Lyft programs, but free for everyone who supported the bus boycott. In February, a young lawyer by the name of Fred Gray filed suit in U.S. District Court saying that segregation was unconstitutional. What that really means is that segregation, separating people because they don't all look the same, is not right and should not be part of the law. It should not be legal. Rosa Parks is fingerprinted, and this photo is on the cover of the New York Times, a big newspaper in that day where everybody, not only in New York, but across the country, saw this picture. In March, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who we all know, is tried in court on breaking the law and starting a boycott. Back then, if you gathered together to say that something wasn't right and you supported it, it was illegal in Alabama and you could be arrested. And that's what happened to a young Dr. Martin Luther King. April through May, though, Rosa picks up the mantle and starts traveling from New York to San Francisco on behalf of the NAACP, making appearances and speeches on behalf of the Montgomery bus boycott. And in the summer, remember in January when they all started their own carpool? And I said that they were back then what we call today a Lyft and also an Uber. Well, in the summer, everyone in the United States decided that they would not insure these cars. Now, your parents can tell you how important car insurance is after we read this story today, but that was really important back then. So what happened is that they had to go all the way out of the country to Lloyd's of London, an insurance company in England, to write insurance policies for the church-operated cars because insurance companies would not insure these cars. And in November 1956, remember young Fred Gray who filed suit? Oh, here's also another secret. Fred Gray is still alive today. One of the very few survivors of just that civil rights movement, but he's still here today. And in November 1956, the US Supreme Court ruled that segregation on Montgomery buses was unconstitutional. That meant that whatever color you were, you could sit anywhere on the bus and they couldn't make you sit anyplace else. But it would take an entire month for the information just to get down to Montgomery, Alabama. Back then, they didn't have the internet like we have today. So it took a little bit of time. But then they found out that the written order from the US Supreme Court arrives in Montgomery outlawing segregation on buses, and African Americans start riding the bus again on December 21st, 1956. This photo right here is the famous photo of Rosa Parks sitting on the bus that was taken on December 21st, 1956. So there's one secret. Here's a second secret. That bus seat that Rosa Parks is known for all over the world for sitting in, that actually isn't the bus seat that she was arrested in. So after I read this story, if your parents give you permission and on your behalf, I can actually send you a video that shows where Cousin Rosie was actually seated in when she was arrested on December 1st, 1955. And now you know 2 secrets. Miss Kaveen, we're ready to move on. Kavine, sorry. Will I someday be an activist like you, young Carolyn asked her cousin. Yes, and we'll protect human rights together, said her favorite cousin. Young Carolyn left Cousin Rosie's house with more than a beautiful skirt that day. She left with the determination that one day she would be an activist like Cousin Rosie, who is known to the rest of the world as Rosa Parks. In February 1987, her cousin Rosie opened the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development in Detroit. And young Carolyn, who is now an adult, would be one of the board members. In the summer of 1998, Carolyn started Community United for Progress in Detroit so children could have a safe summer. She remembered the time she spent with her cousin Rosie and wanted the children in Detroit to have the same kind of role models she had growing up. One of the special activities she planned for the children in the program was a trip to visit the Rosa Parks Peace Chapel at the John Freeman Walls Historic Site and Underground Railroad Museum in Canada. It was at the end of the Underground Railroad and was a very special place to Cousin Rosie. In Carolyn's mind, her cousin Rosie was the most amazing person to ever live because she dedicated her entire life to protecting human rights and taught her family to protect human rights too. The end. But not quite. Let's look at the next slide. Now, all of you, my new friends out there, can be part of Cousin Rosie's Youth Council. You only have to take 3 steps. The first step, how can you honor differences in others today? The second step, how can you make a new friend who is different from you today? Step 3, how can you stand up for a person in need today? Step up and be an activist today. And now you can share your activism with others and be part of all these wonderful children out there that have already joined Cousin Rosie's Youth Council. Now I'm going to ask Miss Rita to come back and so we can sing a song together.
Ooh, I'd love to hear your song, Dr. Williamson.
Wonderful. Well, there were so many songs during the civil rights movement, and the civil rights activism is a serious business, but the movement also inspired a lot of artists and musicians. Songs filled the movement, and they had inspiration, courage, and solidarity in the face of an ever-present threat of violence. So this song is written by Charles Neblett, who is also still alive today. He was part of the Freedom Singers, and the song is called "If You Miss Me from the Back of the Bus." Let's sing.
That was so good. That was great. I love that song.
I love that. What do you think, Miss Rita?
Wow. And so people were singing that back then already. Like, do we know who wrote the lyrics for that song?
Yes, yes. Thank you for asking. So Charles Nieblet wrote the lyrics. Now, he incorporated everything from the Montgomery Bus Boycott, but the real reason why he wrote this song was, remember we talked and we actually were singing about the swimming pool? Well, swimming pools were also segregated. And in Cairo, Illinois, when there was segregation there, all African Americans had to swim in the Mississippi River. And unfortunately, a little boy ended up drowning. And so Charles Nettlet decided to write this song so that they started a campaign to desegregate swimming pools. And it was the original inspiration for the song. So not only did he write this in part of the civil rights movement, but he wrote the song in honor of the little boy who ended up drowning because of segregation. But now we don't have that today, Miss Rita. Now we can swim wherever we want. We can sit on the bus wherever you want to sit. We can play with our friends. It doesn't matter what our friend's background is, all because of these wonderful people that risked their lives during the civil rights movement.
Wow. There's so much rich history even behind these children's songs. And a lot of times they hide like kind of like the deeper truths of what was going on around that time. And you see that a lot in many, many children's songs. That's what I love about it.
And I love them because not only are they just wonderful memories of how people have paved the way for us, but they're ways for us to remember their legacies and move forward. And not to mention, that song is just so catchy. I'll be singing it for the next 3 days.
Yeah, it was really catchy. It was so good. So everybody, I'm just wondering if you have any questions for Dr. Williamson about her experiences growing up, or anything about this book or documentary. And I do have some direct questions that I see, but I welcome you to type in your additional questions you're curious about, even the bookmaking process and not just the history of it. Anything that's on your mind, you can go ahead and let us know in the chat, which is over there in the bottom. But in the meantime, let me ask a question that we already have. So I think this is a good one. Are there any little known facts or special stories about the book that you have?
Oh my goodness, that is such a great question, Miss Rita. And there's so many. Let me start with the first one is why did we, someone said this song was so cool. Thank you. Aunt Carolyn's ribbon and her backpack. Let me see, maybe I just put the here, backpack. They both are purple. And it's not because it's my favorite color, which it is, but the art, the illustration that's done by Chloe Helms, she is an elementary art school teacher. And so she went into class one day and asked her class to vote on their favorite color. And all of the class chose purple. And so as a dedication to her class, she made the ribbon and the backpack purple, so that now any student that is now, they're probably in maybe 3rd or 4th grade, maybe even 5th grade now, they can pick up this book and know that they had a part in choosing the colors in this book.
Oops, I muted myself, but wow, that's amazing. So democratic process, even in the midst of this book.
Absolutely. And also too, this was shows what a group effort it was. And just like with the civil rights movement, everyone came together and supported each other. And that's what this book is. It's a lot of different minds coming together, different ages, to help this book. From the color of the bows to, let's look at one other thing here, to the dress that Cousin Rosie is making here.
Wow. Yeah, something you don't hear a lot about Rosa Parks besides the bus story, right, is very central to kind of like the beginning of her work as we know it. But she was already working on civil rights activism for a long time, including with her sewing. So we don't get to hear a lot about that. Can we hear a little bit more about what Miss Parks liked to sew or design?
That's a great question, Miss Rita, because this dress here is actually a dress that she designed. Now, I put a skirt in the book, but it's actually a dress she designed. And Mattel actually, when they released their, I always want to make sure I say this right, Inspired Women's series, Barbie doll, which they just released a few this year. But in 2019, when they released this Barbie doll, they actually included the dress that Rosa Parks designed. And the documentary may be a little bit too long for our little readers, but their parents, if they watch the documentary, they can actually see another dress that Rosa Parks designed. So it's really interesting to know that in our books, they say that she was a seamstress, but she's like a designer, like the big designer that we see today. You know, when we pick up our Calvin Klein clothes or anything like that, she was a designer like that. That's why she made all of her own clothes, and everybody else wanted her to make clothes for them as well. So this book is based in historical fact, and there's also a Rosa Parks Barbie doll with the same dress on.
I love that. I did not know there was a commemorative doll based on her. And what other touches did they put on the doll? They had her wearing gloves and then.
Yes. So they have in her signature hat and in her glasses. And she also has a person here. The one thing that I wish that they had included was one of the flyers that she helped the NAACP Youth Council pass out. But you could always make your own little flyer and put it in her other hand. But this, I mean, back then during the civil rights movement, when one of the rules that they had was that even though you are not riding the bus and you are protesting against the treatment of others, they wanted everyone to look nice. And this was Rosa Parks' signature look. And so that's why a lot of times when you look at photos back then, or you look at photos of Rosa Parks, she's just always dressed so nicely because she could design her own clothes. And that was just something that they taught them. It was one of the many rules they taught them, which was why this was the biggest nonviolent resistance that they'd ever had in US history, because not only did they tell them about not fighting back because they really wanted to focus on nonviolent resistance, but they also told them how to dress as well.
Wow. Yes, and you need to look presentable and nice when they're interviewing you on television, as you know, because you do that yourself. And on the news, you have to look credible. So great. Oh, somebody loved the song and wanted the video. So we put the YouTube over there in the chat. So make sure you go and listen to it. It is super catchy. Now, a good question that somebody asked, maybe, well, I don't know why I said maybe, but they asked, how are you cousins with Rosa Parks? Like maybe a little bit of the family tree.
Love it. I love it. So how I am cousins with Rosa Parks is I actually married her first cousin. So I married her first cousin, and I didn't meet Rosa Parks until she was well into her 80s, because I met her in 1998. So I met her a little bit later in life. And the reason that I always am so humbled that I get to tell this story is that when I asked my husband's aunts if I could tell the story, especially Aunt Carolyn, they were not only 100% behind me telling the story, but they gave me everything I needed to know to help tell her story so that everyone could learn something different, which is really important about Rosa Parks. So I married into the family. So just like you, I was in awe when I met her.
Do you have any stories or memories from the time that she was a little bit older?
Yes, I do. I have two, and I should have remembered to bring it, but I didn't. So when I first met her was at a family bridal shower, and they didn't tell me that she was coming in. So when the door opened, everyone said, "Oh, Cousin Rosie's here." And I looked, and there was Rosa Parks walking into my bridal shower. But what really was something that just let me know what a remarkable and humble lady she was, even though she was a fierce fighter. We call her a freedom fighter. She gave me one of her books and said, "Welcome to our family." And it was hard not to cry at that time because one of my heroes that I'd always admired just welcomed me into her family. So that was wonderful. And then she came to our wedding, and at the end of the wedding, the bride and groom walks wherever they tell them, like outside the building. And for us, we were getting married outside. So we were walking inside the building, and my husband and myself, we walk inside the building and we turn around, and our entire wedding party is not behind us. And we're wondering, what happened to our wedding party? And we go back outside, and Rosa Parks was on the balcony. I have a photo of this. Rosa Parks was on the balcony, and the entire wedding party stopped and looked up. So that's also my favorite memory as well, because here is a woman who was well into her 80s, and so many people were still in awe of her that they could have cared less about the bride and the groom. They wanted to get a glimpse of Rosa Parks on the balcony.
That's so sweet. Oh my gosh. She can't help but be a star wherever she goes. You know, her name is just sewn into the fabric of history. So that it's perfect.
I love it. Yes. And I love that last phrase. So
Yeah.
into the fabric of history. That's perfect.
So, I wonder where Kai said, I saw the statue of her at the bus stop this past summer. So I wonder what city that was in. Kai, if you could tell us. I bet there are multiple statues of her all over. And let's see, another question that we got, thank you so much for telling us about those things. In the book, you mentioned that there was a peace chapel. Now, does that still exist? And where would we go? Where can we visit it?
Yes. And I want to open it up. The Rosa Parks Peace Chapel at the John Freeman Walls Historic Site and Underground Railroad Museum is in Canada, right outside of Detroit. It's about, I have to go back to my memory banks, Miss Rita, that was a long time ago. It was about maybe an hour and a half outside of Canada, outside of Detroit, so into Canada. If you have your passport, that still exists today. And not only will you see the Rosa Parks Peace Chapel, but you are going to see other parts of the original site where this was the end of the Underground Railroad in Canada. So you will see buildings, you will see the original marker for John Freeman Walls. So Kai told us where he saw it and where he saw the statue. So you will see this museum. Now, I know because of COVID, I'm sure it's different, but if the parents don't mind looking up the John Freeman Walls Historic Site and Underground Railroad Museum, they would be able to find out the hours, and maybe once everything opens up, it would be a wonderful trip. And I will tell you, not only did Aunt Carolyn take children into Canada, and they did it a lot more frequently before 9/11, but they still do today. But The Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute used to take children as well to this site because it's an important part of history as well.
While you were talking, I was looking up photos of the Peace Chapel, and it said that she made annual trips there and that there was a cross on it built of bricks from the Lorraine Motel in Memphis where Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Wow, so it's a place full of history, memorializing a lot of civil rights leaders. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's worth visiting. And I wish more people knew about it. It's a very, like from the outside, it looks very humble. It's just like a wooden house, but it's got so much history there.
There's a lot of history. And in fact, when we shot that location for the documentary, it was just us, and they gave us permission to use it in the documentary. But there was a couple there on their honeymoon from San Diego, California. And it was funny because you're from San Diego, we're from the Inland Empire. And she said that was what she wanted, the places she wanted to visit on their honeymoon. And so I wish more people knew about it, but it's always interesting to find out how far people will come just to see a part of history.
Wow, it's very, very cool. Well, let's see. Kai, thank you so much for letting us know that you saw the statue. I think it was Montgomery, right? And we've also posted the link to the John Freeman Walls Historic Site link. Let's see. Oh, and then Kai wrote, she has Rose in her name because it means beauty.
Oh,
that's
Hi, I'm just loving you right now. I love that. I love that. And I'm glad that they put the location in there because there is a Rosa Parks statue in the city of San Bernardino. It is in the Cal Transportation Building, and it's in the lobby area. You can go see it. You might have to call ahead of time, but we do have one statue in California, and it's absolutely a wonderful tribute. I've been there several times. In fact, when the documentary aired on KLCS, we shot a portion of my show at that statue. So that statue is there in San Bernardino as well. But I want to go where Kai went because I haven't seen that statue yet. I've seen the statue when we went to the US Capitol. I've seen that statue, but any statue I can find of Rosa Parks, I definitely want to go and see it.
Wonderful. Well, we've had a lovely Q&A. Thank you to everybody who participated and wanted to know more. And I'm sure that if you have any more questions, you can find Dr. Williamson pretty easily on the internet and you can ask her some more questions. And we've also put in the link to buy her book and of course to listen to the songs. So make sure you scroll up and see that in the chat. Now, we would like to make an announcement for the Los Angeles Public Library, which is where I'm from. We have a spring showcase of children's activities for the spring. And tomorrow is our last one. We have a magic show about books. We're going to do a lot of magic on the way to hearing more about books. So it's a special show tomorrow over Zoom from Christopher T. Magician. The T stands for tacos, and you can register using the link that we just put over here in the chat. And it's a tiny URL link. So make sure you register. You'll get a Zoom link and it starts tomorrow at 4 o'clock. It's Thursdays 4 to 5. So please enjoy that. That's my little plug for the Los Angeles Public Library. And of course, we're always open Monday through Saturday, and you can visit us anytime to check out books, including Dr. Williamson's book. All right, let's kick it back to Ms. Kavine. Thank you so much, Dr. Williamson, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rita, for having me, and the Chinese American Museum of Los Angeles. Thank you so much for having me and letting me share this story of my cousin with everyone this afternoon.
Thank you. It was wonderful. And it's perfect for Women's Month, you know? I love hearing about it.
I know, everything just flowed together for this one.
Well, thank you, Ms. Rita, for being here today. And a big thank you to Dr. Angela Williamson for joining us and for reading your book, My Life with Rosie, A Bond Between Cousins. I hope you all enjoyed today's program. If your child has a birthday in April, please send an email to info@camla.org with your full name, and Ms. Rita will lead the children in a happy birthday song to celebrate next month. Thank you all for joining Kids Storytime. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I believe we have some last minute comments.
Oh,
Someone wrote, wait.
don't go yet.
Can someone measure the time?
The unmute has been allowed. So, Kai, did you have a question?
Yes. How did Rosa Parks die?
What time?
You know, Kai, it was just her time. She lived to be 94 years old. And so by that time, it was just her time to move on and let other people continue her legacy. So she lived a long time.
I learned about it at school.
You did?
What part did you like the most?
I kind of forgot.
It's okay. You'll remember, and if you forget, you can always come back and look at my story time on YouTube with the Chinese American Museum, and then you can remember. I sometimes forget too.
Well, the only part I remember is the part with the bus part.
You know, I find that a lot of people remember that part too. And in fact, I didn't even mention this, and you just reminded me. The original bus that she was arrested in is actually in Dearborn, Michigan, close to Detroit, at the Henry Ford Museum. And you can actually sit in her seat, not the seat that we have the photo in, but the real seat, which ask your parents to reach out to me and I'll give you that video. But you can sit in the original seat she was arrested in. And so I don't know what the hours are right now, but that bus is there and you can actually walk on the bus and sit in the seat that she was arrested in.
Wow.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to email Dr. Angela Williamson. Aside from that, thank you, Ms. Rita, for being here. And I hope you all have a great evening. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Everyone take care. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.